longer holiday, like Passover, which I know we haven't talked about. Passover is a 7-day holiday. So what do we do for Passover? We eat unleavened bread, but when it comes to the Yom Tov, first day, but for Passover, which is a 7-day holiday, it's the first day and the 7th day. Well, but this is a Reformed congregation, right? So biblically, in the Torah, Passover is a 7-day holiday. So we do the 1st and the 7th. Okay? In a conservative and Orthodox, they would add an extra day, the 1st and the 2nd, and the 7th and 8th. But in Israel, they also do 7. Okay? So Passover, 7 days, 1 and 7 are a Yom Tov. Sukkot is different, though. How many of you, was anyone not here when we did Sukkot? Okay, but you read about Sukkot, right? So Sukkot is how many days? Trick question. Sukkot is how many days? Sukkot is 7 days. Okay? Okay, so if Sukkot is 7 days, you would think that just like Passover, the first day and the last day would be a Yom Tov. Everything in the middle is called Chol HaMoed, which means the ordinary of the festival. Okay? So you would think Sukkot would be just like Passover, 1st and 7th day are the Yom Tov. But, if you remember when we read from the Torah, it said the first day will be a Yom Tov for you, no work shall be done upon it. And then it said, anyone remember? This is tricky, and this is a holiday that I didn't know existed until late, so it's one that we don't really learn about in Sunday school, but it's a biblical holiday, and it's the Yom Tov, right? So it says, there shall be an 8th day, and it shall be a solemn day to you. Now, even though it's a solemn day, right, it's still a Yom Tov. So the plus 8th day is Shmini Atzeret, which means the 8th, solemn, a solemn 8th. Okay? Now, in conservative or Orthodox synagogues outside of Israel, the first and the 2nd day would be a Yom Tov, and the 8th and the 9th day. The 7th day of Sukkot is never a Yom Tov. Okay? Now, in Orthodox and conservative, they'll take the 9th day and make that Simchat Torah. In Reform and in Israel, the 8th day is both Shmini Atzeret and Simchat Torah. Okay? And what is Simchat Torah?
Celebration of the Torah.
Right? It really means the joy of Torah. What do we do on it? We rewind it. That's one way to word it. Right? We finish the book of Deuteronomy with Moses' death, and we begin the book of Genesis with the story of creation. Right? We never just finish the Torah. We always go back, and every year we read the whole Torah. And we always begin at the end of Sukkot, after Sukkot, right, on this Shmini Atzeret Simchat Torah. Okay? So, tonight is the beginning of a Yom Tov, right? The beginning of one of our festival days. So, just like the first day of a longer holiday, now, Hanukkah, which I know we haven't talked about yet, Hanukkah doesn't get any Yom Tovs. You never light candles. Well, you light candles, but you don't light festival candles, right? You light Hanukkah candles, which we'll talk about. I know this is confusing. Are we okay so far? Now, do you know why, did I tell you why Hanukkah is an 8-day holiday?
No. Well, it was an 8-day situation.
Oh, all right. Well, one theory, okay, is that when the Maccabees, and don't worry, we haven't talked about any of this yet. We'll talk about it again for Hanukkah. But when the Maccabees were fighting against the Romans, or no, the Assyrians. They're Assyrians. When the Maccabees were fighting against the Assyrians, they missed the observance of what 8-day holiday? Sukkot / Shmini Atzeret, right? So once they rededicated the temple, they had a late observance of this 8-day festival of Sukkot and Shmini Atzeret. And the oil story we see later. Okay? All right, so since tonight we're talking about home ritual and home observance, I thought why not show what we would do if we were at home. Okay? So, like with Shabbat candles, usually we say the blessing and then we do something. Right? We say the blessing for our food and then we eat the food. We say our blessing for wine and then we drink the wine. We say the blessing for the lulav and then we shake the lulav. But the problem with candles when it comes to Shabbat and to festivals is what? Yeah, once you say the blessing, right, the day has started. And you can't light fire on the day of the festival or of Shabbat. So with candles, we light the candles first, then we say the blessing. And that's why on Shabbat you'll see people do this, right? So you're covering your eyes so that after you say the blessing, you uncover your eyes and see the light so that you're still doing something after you say the blessing. Okay? So we'll light the candles. And then I didn't give you this blessing. So for those who would like to say the blessing, we can do a repeat after me. Okay? And it's just like the blessing for lighting Shabbat candles, except at the end, instead of Shel Shabbat, we say Shel, not Shmini Atzeret. It's the same for every festival. So Shel Yom Tov. Good. So it's Baruch Atah Adonai. We'll go one word at a time. Baruch Atah Adonai, which means blessed are you, Adonai. Eloheinu Melech Ha'olam, our God, ruler of the world. Asher Kidshanu B'mitzvotav, who has commanded us with his commandments. Vitzivanu Lehadlik Ner Shel Yom Tov, and who has commanded us to light the lights of the Yom Tov. So now we would say what? What do you say to someone? Not Shabbat Shalom, because it's not Shabbat, but on a Yom Tov, that Yiddish word for a Yom Tov, we say good Yom Tiv. Good. So we can all say good Yom Tiv. And now this is real wine. Okay, and you can see I gave you a lot, but if someone wants to help me pass out on both sides. There is, yeah. You making fun of me? Or if you want to take the tray, and then people can just take it. You got it? Now, Rabbi we're not drinking yet, right? Because this one we say the blessing before we drink, right? Now, Rabbi Bernholtz has shown you our prayer book, right?
Yeah.
So what you have, now this one's a little different than a normal page because it's a long prayer, right? Usually you have the Hebrew and the transliteration, and right underneath you have a translation, and then on the other side you have an interpretive reading. Because this is such a long prayer, we have the Hebrew and the transliteration on one side, and the translation on the other. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to chant the blessing for you in Hebrew, and you can follow along in the transliteration. And for those of you who are in the Hebrew class, you can look for letters that you recognize. And then what we'll do is we'll read the English together. If you look at the Hebrew or the transliteration, you'll see things that are in parentheses. All of them are talking about Shabbat, because sometimes the festival will fall on Shabbat. So the Kiddush that we would say would be both for the festival and for Shabbat. But for tonight, since it's a Wednesday, we leave the Shabbat parts out. Okay? For those who've heard the Friday night Kiddush, the nusach, the melody, is also different for a Yom Tov, for a festival rather than Shabbat. So the first is, remember, we start just with the blessing for wine, and then the next paragraph is the Kiddush, the prayer sanctifying the day. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol am v'romemanu mikol lashon v'kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'titen lanu Adonai Eloheinu be'ahava moadim l'simcha chagim uzmanim l'sason et yom chag hashmini chag atzeret hazeh zman simchatenu mikra kodesh zecher l'tziat mitzrayim kivanu v'acharta ve'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim u'moadei kodshecha v'simcha u'sason hinchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh Yisrael ve'azmanim. And before we drink, if you'd like to read with me in the English, you can. Otherwise, you can follow along. Now, as we're doing this, think of it. Now, this is, I will give quadruple bonus points to anyone who can tell me the main difference between this Kiddush and the one for Shabbat. And I know you don't have the one for Shabbat in front of you, so this will be like, what's 10 times bonus points? Desiv, Maktul. Okay? Praise to you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, creator of the fruit of the vine. And that's what we would say anytime we're drinking wine. Then, praise to you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who has chosen us from among the peoples, exalting us by hallowing us with mitzvot, which means commandments. In your love, Adonai, our God, you have given us feasts of gladness and seasons of joy. This festival of, at the bottom, Atzeret, Simchat Torah, season of rejoicing, a sacred occasion, a remembrance of the exodus from Egypt. For you have chosen us from all the peoples and consecrated us to your service and given us the festivals, a time of gladness and joy. Praise to you, Adonai, who sanctifies Israel and the festivals. And then we say L'chaim, which means to life, and you can drink the massive amount of wine.